Hello everyone, my name is Billy and welcome to my channel. So today I'm going to be talking about the highly anticipated, poorly marketed movie Weapons. It was honestly probably the worst film I've seen this year. Well, the worst new release, I'd say. So today I'm going to be doing a review of the film, telling you what I liked, what I disliked, there's a lot, and what I kind of liked. A lot of it I didn't. Anyway. Weapons is a new film directed by Zach Cregger, and it follows a community who is suffering with the loss of an entire class of children who have ran off mysteriously in the middle of the night and disappeared forever, leaving the town questioning who or what is behind their disappearance, which we get through very long and unnecessary character introductions. But I'll get to that. I will get to that. Now, this film was marketed as this very elevated horror, the scariest movie you'll see every year, as they do with all the A24 horror films. And it definitely retains some of those aspects of an A24 film, even though this was produced by Neon, although at what cost? I think the main reason why I had such a problem with this movie is because it's directed by Zach Cregger, and I have nothing against the man, nothing against him, but I do think that his films are just not for me. So you could just say, oh, well, why did you go see it then? I wanted to see a horror movie. I watched all of them. But Barbarian, for me, was not a good movie. I really did not enjoy it. And the main reason why I didn't like that movie was because of the pointless character introductions and the switching back and forth between characters without giving us much depth or much insight at all. It's just there to kind of be different. And my problem with Barbarian was, spoilers if you haven't seen Barbarian, when they go down to the basement, there's only really about 10 minutes of screen time where they're in the basement, and that's the key point of the film. And halfway through the film, we get a cut to Justin Long's adventure into the basement. And I just think that cut all the tension from the film, and I really didn't like the film because of that. Anyway, enough of my thoughts on Barbarian. It's time to talk about Weapons. So I'm just going to start with no spoilers. So if you haven't seen the film, I recommend you stay around and then I'll tell you when to leave. If I can work out how to edit that, I'm not actually sure yet. I'd say the main thing I really liked about Weapons, firstly, was the acting. I think the performances were incredible. I think everyone was giving their all. Oh, and I can't say that because that's a spoiler. Okay, I'll get to that later. I think the acting was amazing. Sorry, I don't know their names. I should know that. I should know all of their names, but I don't know a single name from this film because I think most of them were quite unknowns, which I quite enjoyed. And they brought in some new people who I've never seen before. Another thing I did enjoy was some of the directing. I think that it was very haunting. I liked these sort of 70s influences that Zach Cregger has. Lots of zooms, lots of over-the-top shots, and I really liked it. There's a scene where, no spoilers, a woman is coming out of a house at night and it's very dark, and I really enjoyed the way that it was framed, and I really liked how the woman crept up on one of the other characters. I thought it was done very well. If you know, you know. If you know, you know. I also really enjoyed this kind of narrative and the plot that was kind of non-existent, but I enjoyed the initial setup, and I think the first 30 minutes of this film were focusing on the teacher and her perspective of the events, I think was the strongest part of the film. Another thing I really liked was some of the very creepy visuals that we had, and it played on this sort of childlike fear of the like scary faces and the uncanny, which it was told through a very adult lens, and it was told through a lot of the time through dream sequences, and I actually really enjoyed that horror. Although it was hardly used, I felt like it was thrown away by the end, which is a negative, but I did enjoy it while it was there. I think the ending and the punches of comedy that were put in throughout this film worked really well, and it was actually very funny and very hilarious. It was actually hilarious, I'm not gonna lie. I think he should stick to directing comedies and maybe not horror. Maybe you should stay out of that. Sorry, this is not a hate video to Zach Cregger. I just have thoughts. So there's not a lot which I loved about this film, but I would say that the ending was a good punch. I think it was very well done, and it was very reminiscent, and there were lots and lots of references to films that I really enjoyed and I caught up on, and they were like, wow, that's great. I love that. I love what you're doing here. I love what you're doing, Zach Cregger. Now please bring it back, and he didn't. With that being said, let's get on to the negatives. So for no spoiler negatives, I hated the pacing of this film. I do not like Zach Cregger's style of filmmaking, and it seems to be his shtick, and I'm just not into his shtick. I'm so sorry, I don't want your shtick. The constant flip-flopping back and forth between these character insights which we get throughout the film, because the film is split into character insights, where we learn a little bit about a character and then we follow them for a period of time. There's this part in the film where we see a homeless man who's looking into a building, and one of the characters enters this scene with the homeless man, and then we cut to the homeless man's perspective. And in the homeless man section, we don't learn anything new. There's nothing new added. In fact, I actually think his section starts with him looking into this building. What is the point? Please tell me what the point is. I just don't know. It really does kill the tension when we're constantly flip-flopping back and forth between pointless character insights and we're not really getting anywhere with the story. I understand the novelty and how cool it is that we get to see it from different perspectives, but at least add something new. Like, I just felt like this film really went in on itself and just sort of crumbled throughout the middle and then brought itself back at the end. I really did not enjoy the length of this film. I think it was much too long for such a simple story, which I'll get into in spoilers, but I just think that it had interesting things to say, and the story itself was quite original to an extent, but it was just so dragged out. And again, with the pacing, I just think that the end scenes just felt so overly explained. Everything was so excruciatingly explained to a point where you already know what's happening, so you don't really feel like you've learned anything new. I also think that the twist came in a little bit too late, and I think that by the time that we've introduced some people, it just became a little bit redundant to me. And in reviews, I've seen a lot of praise for the multiple perspectives that Zach Cregger's used in this film, but for me, it just hit the exact same flaws as what I felt like in Barbarian. As soon as something interesting happens, we cut away, and we're not really left with that sense of dread. Although there were a few moments in this film where I felt a bit like, oh, no jump scare, like, please don't jump scare me now. I just felt like the whole film was really weighed down by its like kind of commitment to giving these perspectives which add so little to the plot. So I think that's the end of my no spoiler thoughts. So now I'll be getting into spoilers. Please leave. You can come back if you've seen the film. It's been out for like a week now, so you'll have time. But here we go with my spoiler thoughts. Gladys as the villain, I think, and I've already touched on this, bringing her in so late was kind of a problem for me. I just think that there was absolutely nothing which hinted at it. And I've seen things, people being like, oh, well, her car said witch on it, so it means that they were talking about Gladys. If the witch was painted on Matthew's house, I think it would have made so much more sense, because it would have been like right in our faces, but instead they decided to put it on the car, and I just don't think it worked. One scene that I really loved was the jump scare where the teacher is having the dream and she looks up and we see Gladys on the ceiling. Obviously at that point we didn't know it was Gladys. I think that was really well done, and I really liked it. And Gladys as a character was very uncanny, and I think she was a very interesting character, and I really liked her. The performance by I think it was Amy Madigan, she was incredible in this role. I think she was probably the best part of the film. Every time she was on screen, I loved it. And the ending with Gladys, where she's being torn apart by all these children and chased around the neighborhood, I found it hilarious. It really reminded me so much of Matilda, that one scene of Matilda where Miss Trunchbull is getting all the food thrown at her. Oh my God, it was hilarious. Actually cackling in the theatre was so funny, and no one else was cackling. I think there was actually a major problem with this film. People didn't understand some of it was meant to be hilarious, and it was hilarious, but the horror just fell flat for me. And there was just, I felt so little horror, and when there was horror, it was cheap jump scares. Although the ending itself I found very interesting. I really liked how, I actually have a video which I want to do about the 3-act structure and how nowadays in films it's being dismantled and there's no longer this sort of need to keep into a 3-act structure, and the timing of films is more sporadic, although this one was much too long. And I really liked the ending. However, I do have a slight problem with Zach Cregger's choice of villains, or, you know, his horror being that of old women. And I know it probably wasn't intentional, but when I was watching the final scene of Gladys being basically ripped apart, it left a bad taste in my mouth. And I know that probably wasn't his intention. It's just happened twice now. So I'm like, I'm just going to keep my eye on that, because it's just a little bit interesting, although I'm sure nothing was intentional there. But Just something I noticed. Again, with the character insights, just what is the point of these? The part where the homeless man is up on the window and he's looking over, and we get I forgot what I think his name was Paul, his introduction and his segment. We learnt nothing from the homeless man's segment that we hadn't already learnt. The only insight we got was, oh, he's an addict. That was basically it. And there were a lot of plot holes that I picked up on throughout the whole film. Why is Gladys in the dreams? What is the teacher's connection to the boy? It made me think, oh, something's going to happen with the teacher and the boy. Maybe there's something weird going on between them. Maybe something's going to happen in the classroom. What was her connection? Why was she having dreams about Matthew? Which I understand to an extent. Maybe it's just there to add a bit of horror. I understand, but kind of sloppy. I just felt like the writing there was a little bit sloppy. As much as I loved some of the shots and how elevated a lot of it was, I did think some of it was just there just to be a little bit... It was like on the nose. The part where I don't know if I do not know if his name is Paul. Actually, I'm not sure. The man's name was Archer, not Paul. Guys, please, I'm sorry, I've got it wrong. The part where the dad, Archer, is going to the house in his dream and he sees the gun in the sky with the 217 on it. I mean, I understand the metaphor. The children are like coming out at 217 because they're the weapons, but you've put an actual gun. Like, come on, like how obvious can you make it? And I think this film just over-explained everything. By the time Gladys came onto the screen, I was like, okay, so it's her. Okay, so she's a witch. Cool. Can we end the film now? And throughout the whole film, I was just like, oh my God, when will it end? When will it end? When will we stop getting the character insights? When are we just gonna see the ending? And then the ending was actually pretty good, must say. I did enjoy it. But overall, I just think this film is too long. I think it's filled with plot holes. I think that it has some interesting shots and interesting like framing techniques, but it just fell really flat for me. And I think I'm kind of in the minority. A lot of people are enjoying this movie, so I would recommend you go out and see it. Actually, no, I don't. I mean, this whole video is me hating on it, so why would I do that? I gave it 1 star on Letterboxd. If you want to follow me on Letterboxd, it's going to be right here on the screen. And yeah, you can go read my review because I did a full review of the film and it got a 1-star review. Sorry, Zach Cregger. I just don't think Zach Cregger is for me, honestly. And maybe I'll see his next film just because of how much I hated the first 2. So that brings me to the end of this video. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe, comment, share, like it, all of that. This is my first video, so please let me know what you'd like to see. I really apologise for the sound. There's some work going on the street right now, so it's really, really loud. And the background, I just really wanted to get my thoughts out on this movie, so excuse the background, excuse how messy the background is. With that being said, I hope you have a lovely day, and goodbye.